Welcome to our new series, the Single Mom Session series with Mia Taylor and guest. Introducing our beautiful host, Miss Mia Taylor. Join our host, award-winning journalist Mia Taylor, as we delve into a series of conversations designed to empower and uplift single moms in every facet of life, from career to life balance, entrepreneurship, money management, and wealth building. In this powerful series, Mia interviews bold and successful women from diverse backgrounds and experiences with a focus on amplifying their stories, wisdom, and lessons learned along the road to success. And today's special guest is Keisha Blair, award-winning best-selling author of Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated, 36 life lessons to help you recover from disruption, find your life purpose, and achieve financial freedom. She'll share her ups and downs, her tips to take control of your finances and bring wealth into your life. We hope you enjoy today's very special inaugural episode of the Single Mom Sessions with Mia. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, Keisha.
Hi, Mia.
I'm so excited to be here with you today. It's been a minute since you and I have connected. I think we last chatted on your show.
Yeah.
I was a guest and we were talking about my work at Real Simple, but today we're going to turn the tables and we're going to talk about some exciting things that Keisha has going on. Most importantly, she recently expanded and updated her book, Holistic Wealth, 32 Life Lessons to help you find purpose, prosperity, and happiness. So that's going to be one part of our discussion, but we're also going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is just being a single parent and more specifically a single mom and the ups and downs of that life journey. And Keisha has some really great tips for how to live your life and create holistic wealth that I personally have found so invaluable. I'm a big fan of her podcast and I listen to it a lot. And I quite often will be out walking, listening to her podcast, and then have immediate takeaways from the wisdom, the pearls of wisdom in her podcast and implement them in my own life. So we have a lot of good stuff to talk about today. And I think we'll kick it off by talking about, just for people who may not be familiar with the whole terminology, holistic wealth, if you could start by explaining what that even means.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Mia, it's so good to hear you say that about the podcast. I just wanted to tell you how good that sounds, because there's so much that goes into the production of a podcast, as you know. So it's always good to hear. So to your question, yeah, so holistic wealth, it's so funny, Mia, I started this journey on holistic wealth as a single parent. And so just to let you know and the audience know how dear this is to me too, it's so dear because I started this journey after my husband died. And I became a single mom to two young boys. At that time, my eldest was just 3 years old and I had an 8-week-old baby. So my husband died just 8 weeks, after I gave birth. And so for holistic wealth, like that, notion of recovery from setbacks is inbuilt into this holistic wealth framework. And so for those of you listening in who probably haven't heard about holistic wealth before, wondering what is this? So holistic wealth it's a framework that comprises several key elements. And of course, as you can imagine, your financial health and well-being is a critical part of it. And that's financial independence, as well as financial wellness, as well as mental health, your spiritual health, emotional health, as well as having a life purpose and mission in life. And so those are critical pieces, as well as our relationships as well. I talk about that a lot in the book. And it's supposed to make us more whole and make life more meaningful. And so when we talk about holistic wealth, it's the notion of, well, you know what, there's just not one way to define wealth. And Mia, you and I were talking about that previously, but this is more a wholesome framework from which we can glean more resilient lives, more purposeful lives,
Yeah.
and lives filled with more of a mission
Right.
and purpose and really giving back to humanity. So it really does encompass all of that and community and how we interact with each other.
I love that. And, as a single parent, it can be so easy to get weighed down in the day-to-day grind and forget about that whole picture that you so beautifully described just now, and how that whole picture really is important to your health and well-being over the long term and on a day-to-day basis. So I want to dive into sort of the 5 tips that we can offer our audience today to begin implementing a holistic view of life and achieve holistic wealth and health over the long term. And one of the first things you talked to me about during our recent discussion was really having a personal mission. And, I'm not sure everybody knows what it means, to have a personal mission, and even how you come up with a personal mission and how you implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because I remember when I had that initial tragedy and that
Hmm.
setback. And so many of us have faced that in our lives in
Yeah,
one way or another. And so that personal mission that you speak of
right.
really does give us that renewed GPS that we
Mhm.
need. It points us into this new direction
Yeah.
and it really gives us that meaning. And so in the book, I think it's in chapter 5, I lay out a whole chapter on how to achieve your, personal mission and how to go about it. And one of the first key steps that I often tell people is, what are your values in life? What do you really value? And if you were to draw a pyramid
Mhm.
and you were to, rank them in order of priority, what would be the top 5 or even the top 7? And how would you rank them? And that really informs your personal mission because it really should derive from your core values.
Okay.
Since if you value family and
Yeah.
community and your life as a mom and your life as a parent over everything else, then
Mhm.
that should inform your personal mission and it will inform your purpose and how you create your goals. So your
Mhm.
goals won't be in conflict with that. Your
Mhm.
goals will be aligned with those values because oftentimes we make goals and they're
Yeah.
not authentic
Right.
because they contradict. Because you know what? We're making goals because of what society says we should be doing at a certain
Right.
point in our lives,
Right.
what we should be achieving right now, where we
Yeah.
think we should be going, what should be happening. And
Amen.
really, it's against what's going on in our personal lives. So I often tell people be true to your values, be really authentic, strip yourself bare. And
Mhm.
when you look back 10, 15 years from now, what's
Mhm.
the legacy that you would have wanted to leave in this lifetime? And I know as single moms, it's hard because we're so busy. We get bogged down in so many details. We're so,
Yeah.
because it's, the buck stops with us.
Totally.
But it's very critical that we set out this framework for our lives to guide that. And so we're streamlining the busyness, we're
Mhm.
streamlining all the effort because there's so few hours in a day to achieve
Mhm.
what we want to do. And so that's a good way of streamlining it.
So, for example, if I were to, come up with my own personal mission, would it be something like, my mission is to be the best mom possible while also giving back to my community and achieving personal success? I mean, what does that personal mission sound like in reality for our listeners who are thinking like, okay, that all sounds good, but what is my personal mission supposed to sound like?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the chapter, I do give a few examples as well as in the
Good.
personal workbook. Like the Holistic Wealth Personal Workbook has some samples and guidelines. But
Mhm.
just to get into that here, like that would be a good start. What you
Mhm.
started off with, which was like a
Mhm.
general statement, be the
Mhm.
best parent possible, while still, I can't remember the second part, but be the best parent possible
And give back to my community
and give
and
back to
achieve.
my community.
Yeah.
So that would be where you would start. So I think
Okay.
I think once you write that down, then
Mhm.
you'd break it down some more. And you
Mhm.
probably want to have maybe 4 or 5 things that are in line with some of your goals. So
Okay.
let's talk about holistic wealth.
Mhm.
If we're crafting a personal mission statement using holistic wealth as our guide,
Yes.
absolutely we're starting with being a wonderful parent, giving back to the community, and then we're thinking, okay, maybe I should put like a financial piece in there. Maybe
Totally.
I want to put that I want to retire at like this age.
Right.
And then maybe I'm putting a goal with my relationships. And then
Right.
you did put parenting, but let's say other relationships, I don't know,
Sure.
maybe with a spouse, dating,
Yeah.
whatever it is that
Yeah.
your goals are, your personal mission should set it out in a clear and concise way so that it's
Yeah.
easier for you to then break it apart
Yeah.
and then piece out, tease out what the other sub goals are. And it really adds to your holistic wealth portfolio once you start doing that in
Okay.
terms of what the key pieces are.
That's good to know. So for our listeners, you can put your relationships in there, whether it's parent, boyfriend, spouse, put your money goals in there, put it in there, all the elements of your life.
Absolutely.
And that brings me to sort of the second point on the checklist that you and I talked about recently, which was establish your personal financial identity. Again, that can be a term that, maybe people don't really know what it means. And what is a personal financial identity?
Absolutely. And again, this started for me when I became a single mom. And
Mhm.
I started questioning all my money decisions, even as a trained economist, even as an economist who's worked at the highest levels. It's just one of those things that I think we're all vulnerable to, right? So I started working on this personal financial identity framework when COVID just hit, because then a lot of the women who had read the first edition of the book came back and they're like, but I want to know what's my personal financial identity. So I created this quiz and it's on the Institute on Holistic Wealth website. But it really is getting to know your money identity. So some of us, most of us, right, we leave school, we graduate, and we go into relationships, we start out life, and we never really thought about what our personal financial identity was. We
Right.
kind of adapt to
Yeah.
those around us and we pull pieces from, everyone around us who's significant. And then our true identity kind of falls to the back burner.
Mhm.
And so I often tell people, no, we need to know what this is. It helps with self-awareness, number one. It
Mhm.
helps with self-advocacy, number two, and it helps with self-preservation, number three.
Yeah.
So your personal financial identity, and I can tell you, like, there are four key ones. There's the
Yeah.
minimalist, the
Okay.
maximalist, the risk taker, and there's the anxious spender.
Oh,
And
wow.
so once you take the quiz, it's free. You'll know
Okay.
almost immediately. And it's so good to put in, we talked about
Yeah.
the mission statement,
Yeah.
Mia.
Yeah.
In the money piece of your mission statement, put that there. Put your
Right.
personal financial identity and allow it to inform your money goals.
Okay.
Because you know what? Some of us have different risk appetites. Some
Yeah.
of us have different investment approaches and philosophies.
Right.
If you're in a relationship or you're just going to start thinking about dating again as a single parent, you
Mhm.
want to know what your personal financial identity is so you can communicate that. So
Right.
you can, negotiate where you stand or think about if you're thinking about getting serious, with marriage again, or you're going back into
Yeah.
a relationship. Well, what is that? What does that look like for me? And what are my money goals? So, like, I'm not comfortable spending X, Y, and Z on this,
Right.
but I'm more comfortable doing, something else. So it's very critical for
Yeah.
us to have it gives us that confidence
Sure.
and
To
it
know
really
what your
helps us
money
be
personality.
authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to make sure everybody who's listening heard that there's a free quiz about your money identity on Keisha's website, which I took a few years ago when Keisha and I first met, and I found it so fascinating and enlightening.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend going over to our website and taking that quiz to just find out more about you and your money personality. Because as she explained, we don't grow up knowing what kind of money person we are. And we sort of learn by mistake when it's a little too late, often
Yeah.
as single parents, especially. Um, so that kind of really leads nicely into the next item on your checklist that we had chatted about, which is something called a holistic wealth bank account. And again, like that term to me is fascinating. And, how does that apply to life and what does it mean? And how does it really help a single parent?
Absolutely. So I remember the days, you know, um, where I would feel so bankrupt in terms of my energy, my strength.
Totally.
Things got so busy around me. I felt like I was being pulled in different directions. And I sat down. When I sat down to write this framework, I said, well, you know what? Like, we could look at our decisions from this framework of this holistic wealth bank account so that we're looking at all our decisions holistically. Because as I stated in the book, we make 50,000 decisions each and every day. And
Yeah.
most of them, we're making them non-strategically.
Yeah.
We're stressed, we're anxious,
Yeah.
we're too busy, we're pulled in all these directions. And
Yeah.
so this is what this framework helps us to do. So think of each decision as an addition or a depletion to your holistic wealth bank account. And if you do that, it puts so much more gravitas to what we're doing. Even in the midst of making those tiny decisions,
Yeah.
it becomes like, whoa, if I do this, these are the ripple effects.
Yeah.
So, saying no when
Mhm.
you have to say no. As a single
Yeah.
parent, I think that word no is like an asset to this metaphorical bank account that we have, because we just can't do everything that we would
Right.
want to do. And
Right.
so there are certain decisions that act like compound interest in our bank account.
I love that expression.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And there's certain ones that just deplete us, make us feel bankrupt. And
Mhm.
as single parents, I know my days in early widowhood, that
Yeah.
helped me so much. It was
Yeah.
just practical for me on a day-to-day
Totally.
basis. You know what? As a single parent, I can't carry a cooked meal to the PTA meeting, or I can't do this.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm able to stop at the supermarket and buy something though, but I
Yeah.
don't have the time to do all of this. So that helps in terms of this decision framework
Sure.
around how we can think about our decisions.
Yeah, I have to say, of all the tips, and all these tips are gems, but the holistic wealth bank account, when I first learned about that, really rocked my world, because it, allows you to reframe the way you think about every decision you make as a single parent.
Yeah.
And it gives you permission. This really, for me, gave me permission to say no,
Yeah.
and know that that would, by saying no, I'm letting my bank account not deplete. And so that for me was the right choice. So this
Absolutely.
is a brilliant concept and one I really, really love. And it ties in nicely to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is financial resilience and resourcefulness, which is something that was also part of our recent discussion. And, what does that mean for a single parent to have financial resilience? And what does resourcefulness have to do with it?
Absolutely. And these are two critical concepts that I also hashed out more in the expanded updated book, because I felt like it needed more space, more room, especially as it relates to single parents. Like,
Mhm.
so often, we encounter these setbacks. And when we think about financial resilience, it's that ability to bounce back from a financial setback.
Mhm.
And now, when I train students at the Institute on Holistic Wealth, I actually tell them plan for 2 setbacks per decade.
Oh,
Because
that's
with what we're seeing with COVID, Mia, like, honestly, you can see, like, with high inflation, with job losses,
nice.
people getting long COVID, it's just a lot. So if we plan for 2 setbacks per decade, then when
Yeah,
we look at our holistic wealth portfolio, when we look at what enables us to become financially resilient, then
right.
we're looking at what we have in place and whether it's enough. So, for instance, a life insurance policy
Mhm.
helps us to become more financially resilient, and
Yep.
helps our family in the case of an unplanned
Anything.
situation.
Yeah.
Having passive income streams or investments, all
Yep.
of that helps us to become more financially resilient. And
Yeah.
so when we think about financial resilience, what we should be doing is, like, each time we make a financial goal or a
Mhm.
financial decision, the question is, will this make me more financially resilient or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's unbelievable that once you put that lens on it, you're thinking, you know what? I'm making decisions each step of the way to make me become more financially resilient. As a single
Yeah.
parent, that's huge, because, it's unbelievable when the buck stops with you
Yeah.
and you're
Totally.
responsible for everything. There's no other salary. It's
That's
just
it.
yours. There's no other investments. It's just
Yep.
yours. So we
Yep.
have to safeguard what we have. And we
Yeah.
also have to make sure that we're building on that, making
Totally.
our portfolio more resilient to setbacks. The more resilient you become, the
Mhm.
more able you are not to only build on the wealth that you have, but to just,
Mhm.
bounce back really fast.
Really.
So
Yeah.
that's so critical. When we talk about financial resourcefulness, just to
Yeah.
answer that other part,
Yeah. Yep.
it's, and the two are so intertwined, but it's
Mhm.
just thinking about, the tools that keep you resourceful. So when we think about resourcefulness, we're thinking, okay, what can I draw down on? The emergency fund is one of them that makes us resourceful. We don't have to go into debt if we're faced with an emergency, and it also makes us more resilient.
Yeah.
As well as those sources of income, the passive sources, the investments, and just our network in general makes us resourceful as well.
Yeah.
Like we can tap into our networks, we can tap into different areas, different skills that we have make us more resourceful. And so that's why it's critical to have all these key pieces together.
It really is.
And it's unbelievable how organized we have to be, but it's something that's so needed.
I agree. And, as you were speaking just now, I was thinking about my own journey as a single mom, which has been 10 years long now. My son is 10. And with each passing year, I do become more resourceful and I do become more resilient. And it began with some of the tips you just offered our audience, which is have an emergency fund. Like,
Right.
when my son was 1 or 2 or 3 years old, I got to be honest, I did not have an emergency fund. And I've learned that that's a critical part of my ability to ride the waves now. And just to look at things in a more resourceful way from day to day, and do things differently. If there's a tip I would give the audience, it's, when I'm done with a piece of furniture, I don't just give it to Goodwill anymore. I sell it on OfferUp because that's $60 for my grocery fund, So looking at things differently in a more resourceful way in terms of how do you maximize your resources because you are that only income in the household.
Absolutely.
So all of this brings us to the 5th point on our great list, which is develop a holistic wealth portfolio. And, I have a sense that is just really pulling all the tips under one, sort of heading. But you tell our audience, what is a holistic wealth portfolio?
Absolutely. So in the new and expanded version of the book, I also put this chapter and this extra chapter on the holistic wealth portfolio, because I feel like we had all these pieces there and there's so many tips and strategies. And how do we pull that all together under one heading that we can refresh in a tangible way? So that's the holistic wealth portfolio. And it starts with the beginning of our conversation, Mia, down to where we are now. All the critical pieces should be there in terms of the mission statement. And you can even have your money mission statement under that. We spoke about the money pieces, all your goals, all your values, and there are, of course, the different aspects, like the relationship aspects, how you're going to care for your mental health. So your self-care portions, dealing with any unresolved issues like money trauma. And it's unbelievable how much we have to attend to these core aspects of our lives that we don't think about often, but they're necessary. And so all the key pieces of holistic wealth, there's a wonderful diagram in the book that shows the holistic wealth portfolio. It's kind of in a donut, and it shows all the key pieces. And once you disaggregate them, it's easy to then, try to build it out. And of course, if you need help, I'm always here. That's the work we do at the Institute on Holistic Wealth. And that's what I've been training people to do to help others with. So it's a valuable tool for single parents who are stretched, who are under the gun almost, every day of their lives, to have this pulled together nicely. And we can assign a resilience score to it so that how well you're doing and how you can weather any storms and setbacks. And so, we talked about some of the key pieces in there that we look at having, like your life insurance policy in place, your emergency savings, how much you want, all the key pieces, your investments, and all of that's aligned with your core values, aligned with your mission, your goals. Everything is 100% unique to you.
That's wonderful. And I don't know if your book goes into this, but you mentioned investing. And I just wanted to delve into this for a minute, because often as single parents, we have debt and we also want to invest. So from your expert economist sort of point of view, if you are a single parent and you do want to have that part of your holistic wealth portfolio, which is investing, do you pay off your debt first? Do you invest and pay off your debt at the same time? Do you have any input on that? Because I know debt is such a huge thing for a lot of single parents.
Absolutely. I would say absolutely don't wait until you finish paying off that debt.
Right.
Do not wait. Start today in building up your investments, start today, because it's such a long-term horizon in
Yeah.
terms of returns on investments, and over time there's compound interest. We don't want to lose out on any of those benefits by waiting. And I often say to people, you know what, it's your investments that make you wealthy. It's your
Mhm.
investments that make you more financially resilient. And so if we were to wait, for instance, until we pay off debt, then we'd never reach that point. Because
Right.
what could happen is you pay off the debt, an emergency happens, or something life altering happens, and God forbid you don't have an emergency savings funds, you don't have saving fund, you don't have your investments in place, and then your world shatters again.
Right. You're back
Yes,
at
you're
square
debt free, but you have nothing, you have no cushion.
one. Right.
So
Right.
you
That's
want to have that cushion. You
Mhm.
always want to maintain that, even if it means
Mhm.
you're using a strategy where you're paying off your high interest debt,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But you're still leaving some to invest. And so look at
Right.
all the debt and parse it out. I remember, Mia, on my podcast, when you said you have your different jars and your different
Yes.
funds, look at the different jars, look at the different debt that you have. Make sure your high interest debt is being managed and paid down, but then
Mhm.
also channel some to your investments. It's something
Right.
extremely important that we
Yeah.
do.
And I want to circle back to something you said, which is your Holistic Wealth Institute, and give you a minute to just explain to people, how can they engage with the Holistic Wealth Institute? Can an individual take lessons from the Holistic Wealth Institute? Do you have to sign up for a full course? Tell people a little bit about, how they can work with you.
Absolutely. So the institute was born out of this desire to deepen, everyone's, experience with holistic wealth, and to help them achieve holistic wealth. So there are courses there. We spoke about money trauma. We spoke about the
Mhm.
personal financial identity piece, and those
Mhm.
are different courses available on the institute's website.
Okay.
And there are
Okay.
other courses there, for instance, like our signature program, which is the uh, holistic wealth consultant program.
Mhm.
And of course, there's a membership platform.
Great.
So you can become a member of the Institute and, get access to free resources.
Great.
And it will also help you to then, on a day-to-day basis,
Mhm.
live a holistically wealthy lifestyle. But those are the key pieces of the Institute. What happened was, when the first book was published, women came forward and they're like, we want to become certified. We want to help other women. And so I created that certified holistic wealth consultant program.
I love
And
that.
that's how it was born. And we've been
Yeah.
doing the work ever since to help. And this is something that single parents can do as well, to earn an extra income, because once you get certified, you can earn from that.
That's
You can
great.
help other people.
I want to make sure everyone heard that if you get certified as a holistic wealth counselor, you can then in turn make a side gig out of that and
Yes.
be a counselor on your own.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. And that's just another reason to head to Keisha's platform to learn more and get certified.
Mhm.
And I want to talk about your podcast for a minute, just because I personally have found so much value in that. On your podcast, you also offer the lessons of holistic wealth and holistic living on a weekly basis. Is that right?
Absolutely. And we've been delving into the core aspects of holistic wealth on the podcast.
Mhm.
And it really does speak to all the core elements. And if you listen
Great.
into some of the episodes, you'll hear people talk about their personal financial identities
Love
and
that.
how they've, become more self aware, and
Mhm.
how they've applied it in their own lives. And it's been unbelievable
Mhm.
listening into some of those and hearing that. And of course, I do have the solo episodes, Mia, that you mentioned before,
Yeah.
where I get one on one and I'm able to impart that knowledge, one on one. And so
Mhm.
that's been very helpful. And we've been getting good feedback on those too.
I love it. So that sort of brings us to the end of our show, but I just want to, before we, wrap it up here, if you have one piece of advice you would give the single moms who are listening today, Keisha, what would it be? Whether it's about, just recovering from trauma or applying holistic principles to their lives, it is possible to do all of it, right?
It is possible, absolutely, with being intentional. And, I often say holistic wealth is intentional by design. We have to get very, very intentional. I remember when I started on this journey, I got so intentional
Mm.
that I gave up everything. For 1 year, I went soul searching. And I'm not saying that that's what anybody should do by any means right now.
Right.
But I'm just using that example to tell you how intentional we have to be. We have to carve out this
Definitely.
space every single day for ourselves to make those critical decisions in our lives that's going to help us, that's going to propel us forward. And it's getting very intentional. So think about that holistic wealth bank account again. And let's see how we can get intentional about filling up your stores, filling up that holistic wealth bank account, and making those decisions that really act like compound interest. So whether it's lifelong learning, gaining a new skill,
Yeah.
getting a side gig, doing something that's going to fill us up over time, and that's going to have ripple effects, right, across a number of areas of our lives. It's going to
Yeah.
make us feel more empowered. It's going to make us feel more whole and like we're doing something to enrich ourselves and our families. And it's unbelievable once you get intentional how everything starts to change.
Starts to fall into place. Well,
Yes.
thank you for all of those gems. I love the compound interest and all of that. You've given our audience so much to think about. Where can they find you if they want to, follow up after this show and find you?
Okay, so my main website is KeshiaOBlair.com. You can find me there. The Institute's website, I also mentioned, that's www.instituteonholisticwealth.com. And of course, on Sunday, we're celebrating Global Holistic Wealth Day. So I do ask you to join us on social media with the hashtag Global Holistic Wealth Day. Post about how you're celebrating that day. And the first edition is actually on sale right now on Amazon in all countries. It's marked down, and that's the ebook. You can get that for $3.99. Everything is available, and you can get that. Start participating, and I love hearing from everyone. On Instagram and Twitter, my handle is at KeshiaOBlair, and I'm on Facebook at Keisha Blair Author.
And go take that financial identity quiz on her website. If there's one thing you do right after the show, that's what I recommend. So go take your quiz, find out what your financial identity is, and then get in touch with Keisha about how to apply holistic wealth to your life.
Absolutely.
So thank you. It was a great chat, Keisha, and it's always an honor and so informative to sit down and talk with you.
Absolutely, Mia. Thank you so much for having me. It was amazing. Always a pleasure too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.